Call this meeting to order. Give everybody a chance to sit down, and then we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for that. We'll start with adoption of the agenda.
President Armijo, members of the board, I would recommend and like to recommend approval of the adoption of agenda as is. Unless there's any discussion or anyone see anything that they may want to change.
So the recommendation from Superintendent Viviano to approve the agenda as is. I'll need a motion.
Second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Are there any questions? I don't think we need to add the continuation of the work session piece, because it falls into later into it, but it's also part of learning services, so I think it's safe to approve it as is. So we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for that. Look at you. Sharing. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for being here. I don't know, I had a horrible day. It was a rotten day. Absolutely just one challenge after another. And none of it was traffic. I dodged traffic twice. I dodged being stuck in traffic by seconds, if not minutes, twice. So I should be thankful, and I am thankful. But one thing after another, things just turned out to be a rotten day. But I want to say that after the presentation and then just being here, it's like being amongst friends. And I want to say that my day is better because I'm here with you all. So thank you so much. Welcome. I'm very excited to continue the conversations from the work session, but also take care of business that takes care of our kids. So thank you and welcome.
We're glad you're here.
All right, approval of minutes.
President Armijo, members of the board, I recommend approval of the regular meeting minutes from our last board meeting, September 19th, 2023.
All right, so a recommendation from Superintendent Viviano to approve the meeting minutes from September 19th, 2023. Are there any questions? I'd like to just make one note. It's a typographical. It would be just to capitalize the letter T in the town of Edgewood, and I think it was Tom Sullivan's comments. So just run that typo, that's all. So other than that, we have a recommendation for approval of the minutes with the one minor change. I need a motion.
A motion to approve the minutes with that one minor change of capital T.
And a second.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, it's passed. Citizens comment. Okay. So Lacey Heights, come on down.
Hello. Many of the candidates for our local elections have the opportunity to address the public through candidate forums, but the school board has not been invited to those discussions. Perhaps it's because this is a nonpartisan role. Perhaps it's because the role of the school board is limited in scope. But regardless, this board is vital to the health and well-being of our communities, not just now, but in the future. That's why I wanted to take a moment to just express my motivations for seeking a role on the board. I have been studying schools for nearly a decade. I'm an expert in schools, in school structures, in schools as organizations, in New Mexico K through 12 schools and education law, specifically in the impact schools have on students from different social locations. Whether or not they were designed to be, schools are sanctuaries for some students. And I may not have been present in this room for the last 2.5 years that I have lived in Edgewood, but merely studying the minutes from these meetings does not make me an expert in our schools, in our community. My hope in seeking a role on the board is that I may contribute my expertise to the experts that are already here in the room, informing the decisions of this board, so that our schools may better function as the sanctuaries that they are for the students who need them. So thank you for giving me that moment.
Very well. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir.
All right. Moving along, student staff recognition.
President Armijo, members of the board, we don't have any students and although student recognition or student council representatives tonight. We did have some scheduling conflicts that Board Member Burns and I talked about jokingly earlier. We do have the Dig Pink game tonight, and so I think Secretary Chavez was there. It's probably a packed gym.
Yes, it is.
Right, and
Yes.
our students are there supporting the Lady Pinto volleyball team. They're taking on Espanola, I believe, tonight during the annual Dig Pink game. So we don't have any students coming. So I apologize on the conflict of scheduling. When the volleyball schedule came out, the Dig Pink game was on the Thursday of fall break. And athletic director and I and myself, we talked, and some others, and it was moved in fear that people were enjoying their vacation and they may not be able to attend the game. So that's where we're at with that. Yeah, there's a lot of students there.
They won the game.
They want to be
Yes, Jim.
All right. Well, it's a special event, no doubt about it. So, I didn't want to miss it. I think this is important, but I know I had recognized her during a welcome and asked for a moment of silence a few months back for Barbara West. That's why one of the reasons I didn't want to miss this particular Dig Pink, because this is our first Dig Pink without her. And so my mind and my heart might be over there a little bit as well. So, and I think also the recent passing of Sally Wood, great contributor to our district, great contributor to our families, our staff. We will definitely miss her and just appreciate her lifetime support of MESD. So,
I saw Sally's family and her son Irby in particular at the alumni choir concert the other night. So I'll pass that along as well.
very well. All right, well, if you're good, shall we move on
We
to
shall move on to principals and athletic directors reports. Any questions for our principals? And if you have a question for Mr. Nye, we can call him. He's at the game next.
He was very good.
Yeah.
He had soccer tonight and volleyball. Yeah.
I would just like to make a comment. I didn't get to participate in much of the Spirit Week and homecoming activities, but it just, all the activities that you all put together and incorporated all the students, it just is that community involvement and environment. And it just looked like everybody was having such a good time with all the activities that you had. And congratulations on the victory. We won. Unfortunately, the young man
Yes.
suffered a double break. That was hard to watch. So, but I just applaud all you principals and for the job that you're doing and for the reports that you give, the pictures that you share. We love your pictures, and keep on, keep it on.
It's a little bigger than the.
It's over.
It was bigger than the Zobra.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the elk silhouette cut up that they had. Okay, yeah.
I'd like to comment on the Family Engagement Day. It seemed like that really brought in a lot of our community and a lot of our parents engaging with the teachers and other families. But it seemed like that was a really neat idea instead of just the traditional parent-teacher conferences.
All right, any other questions, comments?
I was just
More principals.
say that I was completely amazed that you had 80 families show up to Moriarty Middle for the family engagement. That's awesome. And MES, the dental thing. is that-
Yes.
Yeah, that was really cool. I'm glad that we're still doing that. I don't really remember if we did it last year too. Yeah. I know we've been doing it for a long time. But that was pretty cool that a lot of kids participated. And then also Edgewood Middle School, 61 kids, perfect attendance. Yeah, awesome. That's pretty cool. And 94.69% is the attendance at that school, which is awesome. But I think all our schools are good that way.
Mr. Adams, we still fight free?
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Perfect.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yay!
If there are any other questions? For principals, all right. Ready to move on to board president, Board of Education side? Yes, sir. All right. Any comments from the board? Regional meeting comments?
Yeah, I'd like to, I know Natalie will bring this up later in her report, but I was able to take advantage of the weather balloon and the eclipse viewing that was put on by, I guess it was funded by NASA, but there were 3 different colleges that were here specifically in Moriarty to do research and then also invite and teach the kids of the district. And it was really amazing. Plymouth, I think everybody, they were awesome. They were so good with our kids. They were great with the few people that came out to watch the viewing out on the soccer field. And Natalie and Todd and I got to stand there and launch one of the balloons, and it was pretty neat. So it was definitely an adventure, and it was neat. It was fun.
And I think they picked Moriarty because they had decided that it was going to be the best place to view the eclipse, right?
It was what, a 93% viewing or eclipse?
Oh,
They have cameras set up, you can take pictures through their cameras.
Oh, that's cool.
They interacted with everybody, they were able to answer any questions. So it was a really neat experience. Yeah.
Any other comments? You got something for us this house? You good? All right. I would just like to sort of echo the words earlier about homecoming, and just the hard work of the students. There was a good feeling about all things homecoming. The community feedback that I'm getting from the community has been very exciting. The parade, got to attend that and took my 2 dogs and they loved it. I heard that. I'd like to, all of the floats, the student floats, I definitely appreciated, but I definitely want to give a big shout out to the drama club. They 100% with their chants, with their words, with their voices, had some deep appreciation for the board. And shared a rock with me, 2 rocks for that matter, and they did it in the most loving, sentimental way ever. And it was don't you dare cry now. I'm just like, I see you looking. I'm just here to say it was one of the most touching things in my 10 years here. When students take the time to thank you, it's really powerful. And my dogs had no clue what was happening. I thought they were getting treats, but but nonetheless, I was very thankful, very humbled by that gesture that they reached out. So I hope somebody will get word back to them how appreciative I am of that group. It was very touching. Shifting gears to less sensitive stuff. The regional meeting, probably the last one you and I will attend.
I didn't get to go.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I
didn't
forgot.
get
You
to
had,
go. And
that's
then
right,
did
at
it
the
at
end.
work. We had 4 semi-trucks.
I forgot. That's right. But nonetheless, a lot to learn. Definitely hearing a lot of common themes at other districts. Some of the same struggles that we have, we're hearing, them going through a lot of the same struggles. But But I think at the same time, I think we got to see and hear some of the celebrations by the student presentations and know, you know, we can weigh ours against them a little bit. And hey, we're hanging in there. We've got some talented kids. And but it was very helpful. And I think some of the conversations that were talked about being future ready for our kids, or our kids being future ready, and our obligation to provide, they used the word guardrails, and I like it, you know, to kind of guide students. Had come up a couple times during that regional meeting and different presenters, and I'm excited with the work we're doing on the policy because it fit right into that. They're just not there yet. They're not even that far along. They know something's coming. They just, you know, so they just know they need guardrails. They don't know what for yet, but yeah. So
We've been very fortunate to be ahead of all that.
yeah, for
In a
certain.
long time.
For
Definitely
certain, for
exciting,
certain.
moving forward, some of the ideas and things that they're working on. It was an exciting region meeting.
Yeah, and so APS gave each board 2 student ambassadors, where we were encouraged to have conversations with those students. You know, they were there to also help us find the coffee, I mean, you know, and the tea and the excellent food. APS was a great host. I need to say that I was very impressed with the way APS hosted, but the 2 student ambassadors that we had were both from the South Valley, and I took that opportunity to ask questions about, are they using AI, are they, and I know some of you were there, so you know, they know what I asked them, but their responses were right in line with what we're hearing. They're using it, their friends are using it. You can tell there's definitely a learning curve, but it was great to hear from more than just our own students, but hearing from other students, how they're almost asking for guidance. I mean, they literally are, I think I can go as far as saying that they're almost asking for guidance on this, so. Great regional meeting.
It was, and the culinary program is what provided the food, right?
I believe so.
It was, yeah.
From Trisco High School.
I was
So their high
proud
school-
to get that program back at our school.
Yes, I would like to.
Yeah.
We will work on it.
Yeah.
Let's go to that.
All right. well,
I do have one
Yeah,
question for
sure.
Superintendent Viviano. I was just curious, and I would hope that the candidates all running for school board do understand that they can reach out to you, and I was just curious if any have.
President Armijo, Vice President Howes, I've met with all the candidates except for one. We've had one-on-one meetings, productive meetings, and trying to think, they wrapped up last week. So,
Oh, nice, okay, okay.
Very good, good.
All right. If there's no further comments from the board, I think we can move on to superintendent's report.
So I guess
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I'm just gonna say, the one person that probably didn't contact you is still the one person that hasn't come to a board meeting. Okay, thanks. I just had to say that.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, superintendent's report.
okay. President Armijo, members of the board, I was going to mention homecoming and homecoming week, so thank you very much. I'll just transition to that and then, publicly thank all the efforts that were put forward by the staff members and the students, obviously. The students, this is a fun time for them. They get to showcase their talents in many ways. So it isn't just about the football game. It isn't just about the homecoming court and one of our students being elected homecoming queen or homecoming king. If anyone was able to go to the assembly and see the talent that we have at Moriarty High School, the cheerleaders, just the art department, the way they helped out, the Mirage dancers, the band sounded amazing inside the gym, the full band. They sounded amazing. All of our students did a wonderful job to kick us off that Friday morning. Then we go into the football game and all the work that Mr. Adams, his staff, hustling to get us fireworks, you know, at the end for the end of the game to celebrate.
You
And
do know those were donated?
those were, yes,
They were
oh,
donated.
that, and I forgot to put that, yes, I will put that down. They were donated,
I just
and,
wanted to make sure.
and then, you know, being a participant, so everyone has to realize, again, we used to decorate our bikes when we were kids and look forward to the homecoming parade, and all the tissue paper and everything, and to see that enthusiasm and spirit and Pinto pride come out again in the parade. The maintenance department, right? One of the lawnmowers and backhoes, and, yeah, you know, and gators, you know, transportation department, decorating our activity bus. It's not just Moriarty High School, the elementaries, the different programs. Again, bringing all of our district together to show the pride that we have and to celebrate. You know, homecoming, I know the class of 2013 and 2003 were at the football game and probably had other activities. Mr. Adams, I believe, gave some tours. Gave some tours. We had the alumni choir concert on Thursday. Brought in, you know, I saw a classmate of mine I hadn't seen since graduation, literally, you know, a long time ago.
Was that in the 1900s?
Close, a little past the turn of the century, yeah, a little past. But, you know, again, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at those positive aspects of culture within our district that we want to partner with. And then just seeing all the other organizations from the communities and show up and celebrate. That was wonderful. So that kicks off my report. I do want to mention, and I believe Natalie mentioned, Dr. Ruby Payne was here yesterday, and just an outstanding job working with our staff the entire day, 8:30 with a lunch break all the way till 3 o'clock. Today I was at 3 different schools doing some work, and I would say at least a dozen staff members, and all different, not just teachers, educational assistants, office staff, security, that participated in yesterday's professional development. Just walked up and gave kudos to Dr. Payne and the information that she provided, and we're very fortunate to have her back tomorrow, working with principals and smaller groups to dive deeper into her strategies and to really do what's right for our kids. So I was at 3 schools today. I know in the previous reports we've discussed about the 6-year study with CES, American Alliance for Innovative Systems. Tracy McPherson was here today to start the audit that we're going to be going through. We traveled and she did classroom observations of South Mountain Elementary, Edgewood Middle School, and Route 66. And then tomorrow we'll be at the other schools. And she's just collecting data. We had a debrief really quickly. At the end of the day, Mr. Romero, myself, and there were many positives that she's noting. So that's really good. There's always growth. There's always room for growth. And so they will note that on their final report when they get back to us. Facility master plan. Our next meeting is November 2nd. It will be here in the boardroom, starting at 8 o'clock, going to about 11:30. And then lastly, I in between our work session and the board meeting, I put in front of you this document. It's double-sided. I'd like you to take a look at it. It is the 2023-2024 New Mexico School Superintendents Association Legislative Platform. As you know, this session coming up in January will be a 30-day session, so it will be focused primarily on budget around the state for all the state agencies and the state itself. The Superintendents Association, we've been working together, and I think it was mentioned at the regional meeting, 100% of the superintendents, casted a vote or participated in our meetings, and we came up with seven items for our legislative platform. There are 3 that I want to just really highlight really quickly. It's number 2, funding for essential services. That's centered around the conversation about the ESSER funds that were distributed by the federal government. Those funds are supposed to be spent at the end of September in a year from now, 2024. And so the Superintendent's Association is just asking legislators to look and see what they could support through funding and the quality work that we've done with that extra money that was allocated in various aspects. Number 5 is really important, and it's really something that I jumped on. And out of all 7, they're all very important. I mean, we have transportations, the safety and security, CTE. But number 5, with the math scores and the proficiency scores around the state not being what we'd like them to be, we see that the PED and the state government have created grants, funding for reading and writing, and really pushed that initiative, especially through structured literacy and the letters training. And we're seeing some outstanding work happening in our district through that initiative. The Superintendent's Association really would like the state legislators and the PED and whomever else comes to the table to really look at mirroring that. So we have that quality training, professional development, and opportunities for our students on the math side of their curriculum. And then number 6, support staff salary enhancements. And if you read through this, it really is talking about support staff like our student nutrition, custodians, secretary, and looking at through the SEG increased funding so we can help these people out with their salaries. Typically in school districts and it states right here, they are often at the lower end of the salary schedules. And, they do get the percent raises or the minimums that have come out. And so we'd like the different committees and the legislators to take a close look at that to help us out with funding so we can keep the quality people that we have, and then we're able to recruit even more so community members to come work for us. And then on the backside, this is a lot of information about the operational reserves, and I just want to point out really the first bullet, and the first bullet is really important to all of us, the cash flow distribution, and this centers around the reimbursements and the delay in reimbursements that are happening to the school districts, especially when we transition during that summertime from this budget to the next budget. There has to be a process and procedures by the state to put into place to provide us the funds that we put up front, and so we don't fall into a bigger hole moving into July 1, because as Antoinette and Miss Natalie and others that really rely on these reimbursements and staff, their salaries as we make that transition can attest to, it causes a lot of heartburn. We get through it. We find ways to do it so no one is suffering financially, as an employee especially, or programmatically. But the state does need to look at the way they allocate those reimbursements. So I know that's a lot, but this is really important moving into the legislative session and start those conversations with our legislators.
Definitely. Thank you for that. The third item I think is going to be important, and I hope it receives attention as well, just because we continue to get promises from the legislature on those security funds, but they never come to fruition quite in the way they're promised. They always show up in some form, but never in the way they're promised. And the state is going to have to understand that we don't wait for tragedies to happen before we make that a priority. So they need to get on this, and so I really hope remaining board members and the new board members will really look into that and gain knowledge on what I feel the deficiencies of the state are on that third bullet, or the third item. So,
We've spent
I
a
won't
lot of
be-
our own money. We've spent a lot of our own
That's it.
money.
We've done it locally. We've done it through Geobon, you know, we've always advertised it as such, and everything that we have done has primarily been, is that safe to say that, Ms. Young? Is it accurate? I don't want to say something that's not accurate, but we've used a lot of our own Geobon funds to support, you're right, 100% those security initiatives. And we know there's deficiencies and rooms for improvement, and you know, that one just gives me heartburn. I think number one takes care of a couple of the other issues. You know, you can kind of play with the number one idea and then just see it trickle down, but 3 still drives me crazy because they talk big, but they never show up, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Number 1 on your list there, the equitable educational funds reform. Again, that's you know, the same talk about the SEG, reforming it, but there is a point there at the bottom to try to address the return to work situation and see what we can do about that instead of putting the limitations on a return to work employee who's retired, that the retirement ERB has put into place, and so that's important. But President Armino, you're absolutely correct. It's you know, some of this is very familiar, right? You've seen this if you've been on the board for a while, and again, there's 7 of these legislative platform, you know, topics. I don't know. I don't want to discredit any of them by not, you know, going over each one. But those 3 that I've mentioned tonight really pop out as I think are extremely important because they are somewhat new. They are somewhat new, especially with ESSER funding going away. The math and then the support staff salaries.
Very good. Thank you for your report, sir.
That's all I have.
Learning services, you guys want to stretch? Warm up again?
So we will continue on with the presentation, right?
Do you want to do your report first or the presentation?
Let's do your report
Let's do
first.
the report. Good idea. All right, do we have any questions for Ms. Natalie, the board report?
I was just going to mention the balloon thing, but when you covered that very, very well, so.
Mr. President, members of the board, Ms. Benson, it absolutely was phenomenal. I didn't realize in March when Dr. Kelsey reached out really what it would take to coordinate. But I want to thank the team. I want to thank Lincoln Ritchie and Maintenance Department. Andrew was there all weekend and on call. Jennifer Burson from my office and shipping and receiving, we have been receiving 40 bottles of helium and probably about 30 boxes of stuff, special stuff, items. And 4 of the boxes were the radiosondes that actually collect the data that hang from the weather balloons and collect the data. And Dr. Kelsey over virtual would say, you have to find those boxes, they cannot get damaged. So I'm hunting these boxes and carrying them, don't put anything on these boxes. And just everybody coordinated and came together, and it was just phenomenal for our kids. I want to thank principals. Thank you for the last minute dealing with me trying to get, 415 kids from Moriarty Elementary and 3rd grade from the other schools. Middle schools and high school walked over students, science and art. So it was a team effort, and it was an outstanding opportunity for our kids. I don't know that they'll ever get, some of our kids will never get that. So I'm 44 years old and I've never launched a weather balloon. So.
Right. If I may, Natalie, she just really quickly mentioned it wasn't just about science, it was about art as well. And I'm looking here, but the Plymouth State brought some of their staff members from the art department, and they try to explain to me, at least, exactly what they're doing with the photography, and it wasn't just the balloons going up, it was specialized photography and digital art that they were working with the balloons with special equipment, and our art students were able to at least get a little bit of information and maybe spark some interest in that.
Amazing to me the size of the balloons. I mean, they start out about like, I don't know, about that big. It's just a regular latex balloon, but by the time it hits the ozone layer, it's the size of a bus. Right before it meets the ozone layer and breaks apart.
Right, and then students were able to see the data real time on computers, and then that data is sent to NASA and put into this research project. So a component, as Superintendent Viviano just said, a component of the NASA grant and the NASA funding was an art component because it's a STEAM grant. And so they had to find an art department that would attend and fulfill those obligations for that. So, I'm very thankful to Dr. Kelsey and Plymouth State University. They had 23 students here. Other universities was Albany State University and Oswego from New York. So they had 10 teams of about 8 and 10.
We have some really nice pictures of the fireworks from homecoming
Oh.
with the balloon going up.
Oh,
And the
cool.
fire, so they were very excited about that. Yeah. Any other questions?
I was just looking at the student counts. You lost 19?
Mr. President,
Yeah.
members of the board, Vice President Howells, right now, those are unofficial numbers. Those numbers were pulled from Power School on the day of reporting, so last Wednesday. Reporting is kind of like I reported. Nova has some errors, and they are working very hard. I have to say the public ed department and their IT department is working diligently to try and get reports to run, but they're just not working. We anticipated this, I mean, district-wide, we anticipated this. We're missing some membership, and we have identified where, but they're having to correct templates in the portal at PED, and then we have to rerun. So we've identified,
very accurate.
yes, we've identified the students, but I will say that those numbers, they are going to be a little bit lower than that September number. And I will be looking at the district exits to see where those students are going.
We'll be able to see. And then you had listed all the assessments
Yes, ma'am.
for the state throughout the year. They haven't changed too much, have they?
No, Mr. President, Ms. Howells, members of the board, assessments are the same as they were last year. And there's a different portal for the science. It's going to be in the same portal. There's a little change there, but it's the same assessment. This year, Edgewood Middle School and 7th grade and Moriarty Elementary 4th grade were chosen for NAEP. They had not been chosen in the last 2 years, but prior to COVID, I think those 2 grade levels have always been chosen for whatever reason. So NAEP will come in, and that's the national assessment that they actually bring their staffers in, and they test. Our staff is in the room and all of that, but they test, and then that is that national data that we'll never get results on. You will never see the results, but that is then compiled for national data.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
A lot of great stuff in your report. One of the most exciting to me was our next meeting, October 30th. In fact, I just put it in my phone just to make sure I don't forget. Put it in there, my personal and school. Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of excited to get some updates from Donzel and see where things are at there. So.
Any other questions for Mrs. Romero? All right. Thank you, Mrs. Romero. We will then finish off the presentation that was started in the work session. The discussion on policy IJND, technology resources. And you guys, Natalie and Chris, you're good to start from there, right?
Yes.
Staff expectations, okay.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, everybody, we were at the staff expectations and I had read them, but we hadn't discussed them. Were there any questions? Would you like me to quickly go over them again, or are we good to move on?
I was curious, like, Meg, about maybe trying to add something in there about, and I don't know if it would be appropriate to put it there or not, but maybe to add something about staff expectations for using it with students with disabilities, especially text disabilities. Because that could be huge for those kids.
Absolutely.
That struggle, especially your dyslexic friends and even beyond that, the ones with word finding issues and things like that, it might really look at. But I don't know if that's where it should go, because we haven't gone through the whole thing yet, but.
It might, actually in staff,
Professional development, potentially?
it could be professional development, or it could be at, in the staff under resources, augment their learning. Effectively, something here, we could change some verbiage maybe. I could see it in this bullet. Chris, do you?
Yeah, we could add something in there,
Something in there.
or
Yeah.
even, we could,
It doesn't have to be very specific, but I'd like it to be a little more specific on that, just because I think it kind of hold their feet to the fire a little bit with those students and help them.
Would it be appropriate in the other policy as well, in the guideline or the philosophy?
As a tool too, yes,
Yeah.
I could see that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely, I think.
we are meeting with the tech committee again before the next meeting too, so we can get some, take those
Maybe something
items.
like
and see-
I recognize that this tool could be very,
All students and then incorporate.
and incorporate,
I
yeah,
think- I
it would
think-
be very beneficial to the special needs, or even say, you
It
know,
could even just
text
say-
disabilities.
Guidance on how all students,
Mhm.
and then
Including,
including students with
Yeah, that would be,
yeah,
something
We could do
like
that.
that. There is something like that.
yeah, I like it too. Thank you.
all right. So for curriculum integration, AI technologies may be integrated into the curriculum where applicable, aligning with educational standards and learning objectives. Staff are encouraged to explore innovative ways to incorporate AI tools into lesson plans and activities to promote active learning and critical thinking. It could even
It could go right
Go
there.
there.
That's what
Yeah,
was-
I was
that
just like,
that
wow,
probably-
maybe it goes
I would
right
probably
there.
fit right there.
Yeah.
That's what I was
I think we,
thinking.
yeah, I think we have a lot of options.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of, yeah.
Questions about the curriculum integration?
I like the critical thinking part. I think a lot of our students lack that right now, and I think using the AI is going to help them with that critical thinking. Feel good. I think so.
Prohibited use of AI detection tools. The district believes that fostering a culture of trust, responsibility, and transparency is more effective than relying on AI detection tools, which may have limitations, including unreliable results, and can inadvertently discourage students from exploring AI's potential for learning.
I like that.
The use of AI detection tools for the purpose of identifying instances of academic dishonesty is prohibited in the school district. In an instance where cheating is suspected, staff should hold a conversation with the student and consider offering an alternative method or new attempt to demonstrate learning.
I have a question, just, I guess not earlier, but this is a good spot for it. When a student is using it and using it on their own devices, how can you tell? I mean, I guess you can tell by your student and the papers that they produce that that's probably not something that they did, but is there any other?
So there are AI detection tools.
And we had early on in the spring, we did have teachers requesting that we look into purchasing them. The problem is they are not reliable. They're, at best like 94% reliable, but 6% of the time it's giving you a false positive. And so we're not alone in this, there have been many universities now that have adopted policy like this. Just so you know, we haven't found K-12 policies on AI yet. We searched, but we did, in all the research that we did, we were able to find policies at the university level, and this is one of the items that they're addressing, where AI detection tools are being disallowed because they do produce false positives. As a matter of fact, somebody put the Constitution of the United States in an AI detector, and it came back probably written by AI. So there isn't, the language is meant to be natural language. It's conversational. And the better the technology gets, the more it's even, you can also say, okay, here's a sample of my writing. Now rewrite this essay you just wrote for me, but make it sound like I wrote it. Put in some mistakes and stuff. So it can happen. And kids, hopefully the policy and the way that we've tried to address it really is talking about this trust and responsibility and transparency and using it the way it's supposed to be used, and hopefully we'll be able to instill that in our students. But there are going to be some students that cheat, whether it's using AI tools or their partner's paper, right? It's going to happen sometimes. But the purpose in prohibiting those detection tools is just the unreliability. And then also, when you're using tools like that, we do have available to us, we do use tools similar to detect plagiarism, which is, it's different, right? And that is definitely something that is part of being future ready too, because as students move on to college, they'll use those same plagiarism detection tools, right? But with AI detection, we want to encourage our students to use it. And if they feel like it's going to be run through a detector and they're going to say I didn't write it when I did or whatever, that can discourage the use of it. And so we're wanting to stress the principles and the good digital citizenship side of it, and then take care of the suspicion of cheating in the way that we would if they were borrowing from their partner's paper the same way.
I think it's important to be said as well that this is not a replacement of all other educational strategies. That this is a piece, and so you're measuring the piece necessarily, not the entire content of the assignment or the class. I know when you're reading this, it just starts to feel like it's over. It's a bigger piece, but it's technically still just a piece, and it's those guidelines.
And can I add? And maybe I'm being naive, but I feel like that if a student was, and then they went through it and fixed it and doctored it, well, they're also learning something out of doing that, because they now have an example of what it should look like, and now they're fixing it and working on it more and changing it to be about them. And the next time they go to write something, they may not be so locked up, and they may be able to just start dishing it out on their own because they've had some examples and edited them themselves.
We've studied tools that kind of address exactly what you're saying, that we've shared in PE with teachers and will continue to share, where it kind of shows this continuum, right? And you can have, when you're thinking about cheating, if a student just puts in a prompt, copies and pastes exactly what the computer said and turns it in, there's not a lot of human in that loop, for one thing, but would we consider that cheating? Probably. We could definitely agree that that's not what we want our students to do. But on the other end of that continuum would be if students were given an assignment and they did every part of it by themselves with no assistance from AI or even looking things up on the internet or whatever, would we call that cheating? Well, no, because they did that completely on their own. But is that really what we want either? Like, is that going to best prepare them for their future? Is that reflective of what the future is going to be like for them? No, like we use these tools, right? It's kind of like we've talked about spell check. There was a time when spell check came out and teachers panicked. Oh my goodness, now my kids will never learn how to spell because they're going to use spell check. Well, if a student turned in a paper now and didn't use spell check, the teacher's going to be like, why didn't you use spell check? Like, what were you thinking? Like the tools are there. And so doing some, teaching kids in that continuum, like, here are some ways you can use it. And now you're going to do the editing. Or let it come up with your outline, but you're going to do the writing. Or you're going to do the writing, but then you're going to submit it and get feedback so you can improve your writing. Or whatever, right? And that's where, in the staff requirements, where it talks about where can they use it, to what extent, what will that look like, having that clear communication with students, what that should look like, to move them, to use it as a tool to learn in those instances, but to move them. The other thing to consider is that AI doesn't just spontaneously, these chatbots don't just start putting stuff out. There has to be an input. And we'll talk about this here very shortly, kind of connected to this part of the conversation, but the better your prompt is and the more detailed your prompt is, it's going to craft a response to meet those parameters and that criteria that you've specifically asked it for. And it almost gets to a point where you're co-creating, right? It's not doing it just on its own. If you are trained and skilled in crafting prompts, it's kind of like you have a collaborator in some ways. And so, but learning where those lines are, right? In terms of
the communication piece of that, the student learning that communication piece to get those prompts correctly and dishing out that communication is very effective.
So did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So two things I would just like to add on that. One of the things about when we're talking about cheating or that discussion piece, and I think that one of the things that we do really, really well in this district is relationships with kids. And I think that, that opportunity to say, tell me about your thinking when you wrote this, or tell me about your thinking when you created this, whatever. And I think we are in a very good place with relationships in this district, and so having those conversations, and it really allows for them then to, the teacher to see, oh, not only did they give me this to show me that they understood it and can produce this, but man, they could talk through it. Or, ooh, they couldn't talk through it. They kind of got stuck here. I need to focus in a little bit more on that skill or that part of it. I like that it stimulates those types of discussions. The other thing about what Chris said is just really honing in again on that process versus product. Teaching students how to ask questions, right? So dialoguing with the chatbot, but in a form of, ooh, I didn't do a good prompt. It didn't give me what I wanted, Chris and I were playing with an image generator the other day just to see, and we just made up something funny. And so she typed in giraffe eating a corn dog at a baseball game. So it created an image, a picture of a giraffe in the stands at a baseball game with a corn dog in its mouth. However, we stumped it because it didn't realize what a corn dog was. It had a hot dog with a stick in the bottom, but it had literal corn kernels on around it, right? So it didn't understand what a corn dog was. And so it's, it also, moving forward with students and yes, and how to get more specific. And what do we do all the time with students in their writing? But more specifics. So this is just another tool to help them do that. So moving on to the privacy and data security portion of these guidelines. In accordance with the district policy and all regulations protecting student data and educational records, staff and students will not share or enter students' personally identifiable information, which is called PII, in AI tools without administrative approval. The school district shall ensure that any AI tools approved for use by students for educational purposes comply with the relevant privacy and data security regulations protecting students' personal information and data. Again, the program that we will be using with students is called Chat for Schools, and it is COPA compliant, FERPA compliant. It is protected by the garden wall. Garden wall? Walled garden. Okay. Keep getting that mixed up. And, teachers, if you need help writing an IEP, for instance, it's not appropriate to say, Natalie Romero has a learning disability in reading or dyslexia or, and was born on this date and this is her, create an IEP. That's not appropriate. In fact, that's illegal and you cannot do that. And so definitely training in our professional development about, what that looks like and what is and is not allowed.
Any questions about that? On that first bullet, just so you know, that the last three words, without administrative approval, those were added because there are
Integrations.
there are some integrations. Actually, Paul Tejans, our IT coordinator, pointed out, because originally it was just, no, we're not putting that stuff in there. Staff and students can't put personally identifiable information. If you are working on IEP goals or something, it has to be anonymized. It can't have personal information. We're just going to say no. And he's like, in my job in IT, there are some applications that we use that do have AI technology in them. But we use them in testing and all these things that we're required to have that PII in there for students. And he's like, I don't want to get fired for being a part of that. And we're like, oh. So he said, so can we have with administrative approval, because he's approved to do his job, right? So it's not like we're trying to leave a loophole for other people or something, but there are circumstances when it is required, and admin would know about it and have that approved.
And he wouldn't be putting them into ChatGPT.
Exactly.
But he'd be putting them, for instance, into PowerSchool, which does or is about to have an AI component, but they're not associated per se.
Exactly. The next section is professional development. And first and foremost, Chris and I have been talking about this in the technology committee, and we know that, let me back up. Chris and some other staff members have already been providing professional development in the area of AI and emerging technologies beginning this summer. And our special education department, they have attended a training on the use of generation of accommodations and modification ideas, and the writing of present levels and certain things like that to help them, again, become unstuck or get out of that rut of just the same modifications. Because sometimes we just, we know what we know, and it just takes a little click of, oh, we could try that. So that's already starting, but we know that the minute that this policy is approved in the next few months, we are going to have to hit professional development very, very hard and very fast, quickly, so that our early adopters
have training and have what they need to be supported, and then we can start, having teachers lean in and trying little things, just taking little steps to enhance their instruction. So the bullet there says the school district shall offer professional development opportunities for staff to stay informed about and practice with the latest AI technologies in their educational applications, ensuring they are equipped to guide students effectively.
So would you go as far as to maybe add in there, and I'm asking, I guess, if you've had this conversation, that perhaps school staff cannot use it if they haven't gone through professional development? Just a thought, or maybe require they have had so many hours of professional development.
Maybe as it pertains
But I don't
to-
want to discourage them to not.
Yeah, I think to say that they can't use it without professional development, I can hear Paul saying, well, they can do whatever they want on their cell phone. Like, they will be using it. So I think to say that staff can't, I don't know
Well, I mean, the
that
staff
would
can't
work.
use it in the classroom with students.
That's where I was going next,
Yeah, that they cannot use it in the classroom with students without the professional
Yes,
development.
that I think
Yeah, they
would be
can use it on their
appropriate.
own all they want,
Yeah.
Probably be a baseline in Learniverse or one of those that
Yeah,
just makes
I
it
think we had a
trackable.
conversation about that.
There was, yeah, we had a
But I
conversation.
don't want to discourage them either, because
Right.
years ago, when we started trying to get them to use the Google, and there were a bunch of teachers that were kind of lagging behind, they didn't want to, and then COVID happened. It was kind of a blessing in that respect, because it pushed those last few naysayers over the edge, and they had to. So then everybody had to learn it.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen with this, but I think maybe since we got over that hurdle, I could be wrong, but since we have gotten over that hurdle with using Google and everything, that most of our people in the district are pretty savvy and want to try this.
Yeah, I think that adding something in reference to using it with students in the classroom would be appropriate. As far as staff use, I think it would probably just become a squishy, weird
Right,
thing,
yeah, no,
but-
yeah, and I was
but yeah,
going down the road
yeah,
with staff
yeah.
using it with their students.
Yeah,
So,
I think so. Yeah.
Mr. President, Ms. Howells, members of the board, Ms. Howells, you did ask if we were co-creators, and so we are modeling what it might look like when you reference the co-creation in a document. So we just put a transparency notice. The assistance of AI, large language models, ChatGPT, and Google Bard has contributed to the comprehensive and thoughtful nature of the preceding policies, ensuring they reflect best practices and the evolving landscape of AI in education. So, and just to be very transparent of how we did this, Chris and I took language from the technology committee, what we've heard many of you say, what the retreat, what the language we heard in the retreat, language from the U.S. Education Department technology document, and pulled out, lots of things, and we started creating prompts. Chris created 4 or 5 prompts in Bard, and I created 4 or 5 prompts in ChatGPT, and we got, I don't know, probably 10 outputs, and started pulling what we liked from each one. We got very different documents or responses, and we started pulling and kind of started piecemealing it together, and then ran it a few more times. So lots of work and kind of critical thinking to piecemeal it together. And well, I don't really like this word. What is this getting our point across? Does this reflect the views of the committee the best? So that's how this was created.
And we had discussion when we presented this, the draft to the technology committee. We actually did even some more edits with the committee at that time too. But we had a discussion even about the transparency notice, because the way we used it and the type of document this isn't something that really would
need to have that transparency notice, and we went back and forth on whether or not we should, but we thought this is an opportunity for us to model the idea of being transparent and showing students from the get-go. Even our policy is it is reflective of that.
So those are the two policies that you do have in your packet for first read tonight, under that section. And we would love to answer any more questions. And if there's no more questions, then we're going to take 5 minutes and show you something really cool.
Can I just real quickly, just for everyone's benefit, we keep talking about the tech committee, but for the board, could you list off who is part of the tech committee for our district?
Yes,
Yeah.
the tech committee is Chris Armijo, Superintendent Viviano, Michael Buckley, myself, Paul Tegens, IT coordinator, Lucas Hibbler, IT specialist, Jennifer Cashman, math teacher at Edgewood Middle School, Renee Ansel, science teacher at the high school, Sarah Apple, our librarian district-wide,
Cody
Aceves,
third grade teacher.
Yep. Leslie Gaston Beatty, principal, and Josh McCleve, assistant principal at the high school.
And President Harvey.
Oh yeah, yes. I thought I said it when I said you, did I not? I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Just
Yes.
I wasn't sure if anyone you knew the kind of across the board
that's
who had who's involved in these discussions. Yeah.
Do you want to click on it? It's right here.
Is it okay if I just point out one thing on here too? I just want to point out that nothing on here requires the use of AI. It's encouraged, but it's not required, and I think that that's an important distinction. It's not a mandate, but we just felt that it was really important. It went back and forth. Do we even need a policy for this? We want kids to be able to use calculators when it's appropriate to use a calculator, and we don't have a policy for that. But this is different because there are questions about the ethics, about some of the concerns, about the cheating and those things, and we just feel that it's really important moving forward and aligning ourselves with the district goals and everything to have something in place that clearly communicates like where we stand and offering those guidelines so students know that they're supported in the use of it. Staff knows, yes, they can use it, but there's guidelines that this is what we need to be providing, and then just putting that emphasis on responsible, ethical, transparent.
And really thinking about what we would like our graduates to leave with, and the skills, the opportunities, just to have a knowledge of the technology that is out there and that they will be using, whether it's going to college, in the military, going into the workforce, into an apprenticeship. They are using it. I mean, it's out there, and we want them to be equal, if not ahead, right? We want our students to be ahead, but we at least want to give them that equal opportunity. So what we'd like to show you now is the Chat for Schools component of Skillstruck, the curriculum company that we will be using for our computer science program, K-12 next year, hopefully well, not hopefully, but we will roll it out K-8 this spring. So there is a component of what's called Chat for Schools, again, powered by ChatGPT. This is what it looks like. And we just want to walk you through a quick activity. So an English teacher is going to give an assignment to a class, and the assignment is a writing assignment. They've been studying Edgar Allan Poe, and the writing assignment that the teacher asked the students to do is to write a piece, an informative piece, and do it in the voice of Edgar Allan Poe, and
right?
Yeah,
In the voice of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
So we already we didn't want you to have to suffer watching us type, so we already have the prompt, and it's, did you put it in
Yeah,
there?
I want to just point out, even the box where I'm getting ready to paste it in says, do not share personal information. So they see that every time, so, okay. So I'm going to paste this in.
So the prompt says, you are Edgar Allan Poe, historical poet.
So that is telling the chatbot, this is how you're answering. You're going to answer this as if you are Edgar Allan Poe.
Please write a paragraph about Edgar Allan Poe. Include details about his birth, death, and notable works with deep insight into dark romanticism and use of alliteration. Write in the voice and style of Edgar Allan Poe and limit your response to one paragraph. And she'll click the little blue thing, little blue arrow.
Once upon a midnight dreary in the year 1809, I came into this world. Edgar Allan Poe, a somber soul destined to traverse the realms of morbid verse. Alas, you could see. Just
So on and on, right?
Right? And so at this point, the students could go through a process. There's something called an edit framework where they're going to look and see if the language structure does match what they've been reading from Edgar Allan Poe. They're going to check to see if the facts match up, if those works that are cited there really are works of Edgar Allan Poe, if the style matches that style, and then from there they can go on to write the next paragraph in the same form.
So as Chris and I were doing this, we got a good kick out of it, and I said, no, Chris, I want to know how smart this thing is. So I want it to tell us something that is relevant to us right now, something that kids might know, the community, what's happening right now in Moriarty, New Mexico. It was right after the pinto bean fiesta, and so I think pinto beans were on my mind, or I was really hungry. And so I just started typing into it, and I put the prompt, you are a pinto bean farmer in the Estancia Valley of Central Season. So again, I didn't tell it, I said Central New Mexico, I didn't say Moriarty, I didn't tell it what month, I just wanted to know what does it know, because I said the first crop of the season. So it started, and if you can pick up what it's writing, so I'll just read it. I, a humble pinto bean farmer, devise a plan for my first crop of the season. With careful consideration, I shall till the soil parched, longing for life-giving, blah, blah, blah. So it still thinks it's Edgar Allan Poe, right? Ha, 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 very funny. So we said, well, wait a minute. Write this in a current day farmer's, from the current day farmer voice. So she's typing that in now.
This is actually encouraging them to really read a lot too. Because they're going to want to read that. What did it say, you know?
And here it comes, and it's, from a more contemporary framework. I do want to say that Chris and I we've done this 3 times today, and we've gotten 3 different outputs. Using the same prompts. One of them was really good and we can't get it back. It was like...
It doesn't keep the history.
Well, I deleted it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did delete, in the teacher view. You can speak.
Well, yeah, in the teacher view, teachers can delete it, students can't.
But it had like a soil plan and a water plan and a seed plan. And so it was pretty interesting. It was way more in depth. So this is what Chat for School looks like. Do you want to show on the platform real quick? So just a teacher view.
Just to skill structure, where it's closed.
So the teacher view, again, it does log everything, and it will tag students. It shows you're able to see their archived conversations, and it. Because it's out of the dashboard. It's fine, since I'm out of the dashboard, it's okay. So there is a student view and a teacher view. It also has lessons, and so you can create lessons to work with your students and teaching them how to use Chat for Schools appropriately. So, and they're all right there. There's not a lot of work that teachers have to do that's extra. They can just follow there, and there's video lessons for students and hands-on lessons.
So it's curriculum enriching, it's not replacing our curriculum.
Not at all.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's also important just to talk about, a little bit about Skillstrip. The gentleman that came out to give a presentation, you don't always see the passion in a company, but they definitely have the mind of an educator, but they also have strong team that understands the technology, so and there's not a lot of competition out there, but right out of the chute, this company has done a really good job of bringing the right people together to package this for education. I think that it is a great think tank of people, and his presentation gave me great confidence in the fact that they've thought a lot about all of the moving pieces involved, and it is very student and teacher centered, and which that's what we're after, so I haven't gone out to research too much outside of, I have a little bit before the presentation, but I would encourage others, to see the credentials of the team, and they're very experienced in all things AI as well as education.
I could see us getting 20 years down the road and somebody laughing that we had a
AI
policy on it, but I see where it's necessary.
It's absolutely
I think it's very necessary.
and what I'm thankful for the committee and the district is not getting hung up, because when it first came out, I mean, everyone went straight to the cheating piece. And if you focus on the cheating piece, then you miss everything else that it is capable of preparing our students. So I'm thankful that we moved past that piece. And it was the first piece. There's no doubt about it that was the starting point of that committee. And we stayed there for a long time. I saw a meme the other day, made me laugh, and it made me process basically what we're doing. And it's a meme where this parent is looking at an assignment that the child did. They're doing this. They're like, I can't believe my child, got a 62% on his 5th grade math assignment. And at the bottom it says the worst part of it is I did it for him. So it's all cheating, that has nothing to do with technology. But if you're hung up on that piece, you miss what is available. And I think that this district has always been about bringing what is available to our students, because they may not get it other places.
Giving them the tools to help them succeed.
It made me reflect back to my high school days, and it was probably around 88 or 8, no, it was probably 88, 89, or 90 as a high school student that I was asked to present about emerging technology to the school board. I was asked by a parent at the time, Ken Jensen. He was he worked at Sandia National Labs, and I had a passion for the technology then, and he wanted me to give a presentation, even back then, to the board about a platform of computers and how it could be integrated into our district. I laughed thinking about it later. you know, just this district has always wanted to be ahead of the curve on some of this. And I feel we're light years ahead. Others are waiting and watching us to see what we do. There's, like it had been mentioned before, there's not a lot out there. So I think that this does us justice. I'm sorry, I'm talking so much.
Right.
But I just want to convey to them, you know, one of the pieces that we've always struggled with the idea that we use the policy service because it's, you know, it's kind of boilerplate, and it, you know, it crosses the T's and dots the I's on the legal front. But in terms of local voice, this is part of the policy process that helps us establish local voice, and that's why I'm pretty excited about this. It helps us keep this process moving and then provide opportunities. And I've always said that is probably absolutely one of the most important pieces, is that we don't let adults get hung up and take away opportunities from our kids. It's always about opportunities. It's always about what is next and what is out there and available to our students. So I'd like to thank the tech committee for that.
That's what got us through COVID.
Absolutely.
The only school district in the state that had a Chromebook for every student. We actually were able to put one in everyone's hands.
I went through an old board report. No, I went through an old board report. He's dying over here.
There's a few that are dying.
Went through a board report, and I could not, it was pre-COVID, where we were having the conversations about one-to-one devices. And it seemed so impossible. You know, it seemed so impossible. And now we've aged out multiple generations of one-to-one devices. It's who we are and what we do, you know. And so it was interesting to go back to those notes and see that. Good.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Romero, Ms. Armingo, thank you very much. We do have later in the agenda some more discussion if we'd like in the first read of the policy, or some come back to some of the suggestions so we can make note of that as well if we need to. And Vice President Miles, I appreciate the comment you just made about, 20 years ago or sitting around the table. I made a similar comment in the tech committee meeting. I said, what was it like in the 80s, late 80s really, when the internet was coming out and there were school committees sitting around the table? Do we have policy? Do we let our students use the internet? Do we not let them use the internet? So we do move very quickly with technology, and the discussions sometimes are fast as well, but we need to slow down and make sure that we're doing it right for the students. And I think that's where we're headed with this policy.
This for a while.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on the agenda, under business, we have consent agenda items 1 through 3. I would like to recommend approval of these consent agenda finance items 1 through 3.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Viviano to approve consent agenda items, finance items 1 through 3. Do we have any questions? If there are no questions, then we'll need a motion.
I move that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 3.
All right, so we have a motion. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item under business, revenue and expenditure reports. Any questions for Mrs. Young, or fixed asset reports? Or just in general, any questions?
I think you were talking about finance committee, not yet?
Anything moving with the audit committee?
Mr. President, members of the board, we've been buried with the audit committee, so no, we have not moved on the finance committee. I did try to set up an audit committee meeting for the end of last month, and I did not hear back from them, but I think it's because they were hoping to be done by the 15th of this month, and they wanted to just have the exit. And we're not quite finished, but we're getting close, so hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be able to set up that exit meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Any other questions? on to Director of Personnel Board Report, Dr. Buckley. Questions for Dr. Buckley?
Looks pretty good. Looks really good. Right? And it looks really good. I know, yeah.
Was it said at the regional, on top of the list, I thought I'd almost heard in the presentation that they were still looking at potentially some, outside of just the support staff, were there salary increases talked about as well for teachers in the tier system?
President Armijo, members of the board. So at the regional board meeting, they had the different departments, and I think for what you're speaking to, the public ed department, their legislative platform, it sounded like they were going to propose at a minimum 6% salary raises across the board for our public education, employees.
You passed the test, sir. That was a loaded question. Let me see if you were paying attention.
I was paying attention that night. That was a long night as well. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's unreal. So,
Yes.
Dr. Buckley, I mean, if that legislative initiative moves forward, I mean, it could really continue to make your job a little bit easier. So.
Yeah, we are, some of the positions are the same. Applicants are far few between right now, at least the ones that we've vetted, to come through. I've been asked by several different people, whether it's superintendents or today by the AAI as a representative about staffing, and, I present this to them and they give a nod and say, you're doing a fine job. Yeah, versus some other school districts. So it's really nice to have Dr. Buckley and his department working to hire, as well as the retention of our staff. I know Dr. Buckley, it says in his report, went to the job fair, and then he's headed to the Employer Labor Relations Conference, but I know they're also going to be talking about retention and recruitment, and, is there. Okay.
I've participated in some of those job fairs or things similar to it, and that can be brutal sometimes. So thank you for enduring and advocating for our district up there. So
Thank you, Dr. Buckley.
but mostly enduring because it's sometimes some bad coffee and stale dinner time. That's all about. So,
They stick you in the corner, right? You gotta advocate for that table in the middle of the room. Yeah. All right, moving on to support services, special projects, and other items. Do you have any questions, or you can help answer any of the questions for transportation, tech, maintenance, or food services?
Just the concern about the bus driving situation, that there's still 3 routes that are
Yes, ma'am.
uncovered, and there's 2 people that are looking at leaving in the board report. It would be 5, could possibly be 5 open routes.
Yeah, there could be 5. Mr. Bell's doing the best he can to make sure that those 2 don't leave. That just came under some paperwork situations that we got cleared up through the business office and just the employee situation. We met with Mr. Bell, was it yesterday, Dr. Buckley, and everyone else? We met with Mr. Bell, and again, it is a matter of 7 people in training right now. That's great news, knowing that even if we get all 7, we fill the routes, and we're talking about how to get those others that pass to stay with us, the capacities, substitute driving and whatnot, but also, it's a little nerve-wracking again, and when I was on that side and talking about it, it's a 6 to 8 week process from start to finish, if someone passes on the first try. But yeah, they're moving along. Yes, ma'am.
And some of them just get impatient and right, and so they say, I'll just go somewhere else. So we go as fast as we can.
That's
but
right,
then we
yeah.
depend on others too.
Do we have some close to testing now?
Yeah, we're just waiting on, yeah, what is it, I can't remember.
The learner's permit to
Yes.
go through and whatnot.
Okay.
We did have in our staff, we were very fortunate to actually have a tester, right? So we have our trainers and they stay separate from our tester. But the staff member did not get recertified. And so that's another hurdle, I guess we'll say, to get a tester from somewhere else to come in and test them before they go to the MESD.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just want to point out, President Armijo, members of the board, on Mr. Ritchie's report, he had mentioned about the track still having issues. They were here yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday, because we were in training with Dr. Payne and Athletic Director Anaya told me he went to go open the gates so they can do some of those repairs.
Maybe in your next board update, maybe you could give us an update on that meeting, once you're debriefed on it.
On the track?
Yeah, on the track, yeah, it just seems like.
Seems like we're
it's-
constantly doing
it's
a lot of
there.
repairs.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like we just did
At
it.
some point.
They did, they did, and
And
there was
okay.
more problems that pop up.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I wrote wells. Didn't say track. I was ready.
You're not sleeping at night, are you?
All right, any other questions for support services or special projects?
On the Edgewood Middle School, when they take out that swamp cooler, will it be replaced with another swamp cooler?
We are not wanting to replace any of our swamp coolers
Okay,
with
good.
a swamp cooler.
Okay, okay. Okay. Yeah.
This is wait time in teaching. Right, anyone else? Any other questions? Great questions, thank you. All right, moving on to board policy. Last meeting, we introduced in the first read 3 policies that were passed through the legislation, this past legislative session. And so for item A, we have discussion and a second read for policy 235, which is a new policy that would be added to every school district in the state of New Mexico, and it is the school board election holiday policy, where we will be required to build that into our calendar the election day as a day off. Mhm.
If they get that day off.
Mhm. Yeah.
Next year.
Any questions? Straightforward. If there aren't any questions, then I would recommend approval of policy 235, new policy, which is B in the Moriarty of the school district policy, school board election holidays as written.
All right, so I have a recommendation from Superintendent Bibiano to approve policy 235, which is the new B policy for school board election holidays. Any questions? If there are no questions, I'll need a motion for approval.
I move that we approve policy 235, new B, school board election holiday.
All right, I'll need a second.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Under board policy, item C, second read and discussion, policy 236EF, food services and regulation, and also the regulation, EFR, for food services. The overarching policy, and it was passed for breakfast and lunch for every student.
It seems redundant because we're almost done.
Discussions on the second read?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. So President Armijo, with that, I recommend approval of policy 236EF, food services and regulations, as well as EFR, the regulation that follows it under food services.
All All right, so a recommendation from Superintendent Viviano to approve policy 236, which is EF, food service, and regulations, EFR versus the regulation for food services. So I'll need are there any questions? If there are no questions, then I will need a motion for approval. For recommendation from Mr. At the last meeting, it was helpful, even though it was still a legislative mandate,
Right.
that we do it. It was still helpful to have the explanation. So you're welcome.
All right, item E, we're in E, right?
Item
E.
Yeah, discussion.
Discussion, second read, policy 237, JFB, open enrollment. And again, this is the policy change to allow the open enrollment of students who may be in a military family before they establish any residency within our district, to allow them to enter our schools and start off. Any questions? Any? Okay, with that then, I recommend approval of policy 237, JFB, open enrollment as written.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Viviano to approve policy advisory 237, JFB for open enrollment.
I'll motion to approve policy advisory 237 JFB open enrollment.
All right, so we have a motion. I'll need a second.
Okay.
Linda's seconding. So Ms. Hudson will be second. So I have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Here we are.
And here we are, item, board policy item G. Any further discussion on the first read of policy IJND, technology resources? Adding all the information that was presented tonight. Again, the policy as it reads now really just focuses on movies in the classroom. Yeah. And moving towards developing a policy for the use of and the parameters and guidelines for artificial intelligence in our classrooms.
I would, Superintendent, I would just say that right now, I mean, it seems appropriate that they be, like this policy IJND, it's appropriate where it lives, I think. There is the option, since it is a new policy, just in case, as you all think about it quick though, not necessarily tonight, but it could be a standalone, not that particular one, but the next one. But just be thinking, I know your wheels and Elizabeth have been turning with some of this, but we have options and we may get some outside advice, I would assume from legal, correct? And then, so that there may be an option in a second read where it may end up being its own standalone policy. But that will be probably decided relatively soon. Should not change language or anything like that, but
Just how we name it.
just how we name it. So basically, because some of the takeaway from the committee, but I've heard it a couple of times tonight, is that it be available, and that it be visible, and that there be expectations. And so I think that might be the value in that, but that does have to be run one more time through legal, I believe. So.
And would you want any of us to just email any ideas or any thoughts that we have between now and the next board meeting? I mean, if you want to, like, if a board member if we had any more comments and we'll walk away and you're thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who would you want us to?
Vice President House, reach out and email me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's already been some suggestions made, and we can continue on, and, if you have any questions or anything, any bits of clarity that you might need when you read the language a little bit more closely. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Are we ready to move on?
I think so.
Okay. And under board policy, item H, discussion and first read of policy A, educational philosophy and / school district mission, adding the language that supports the use of transformative, technology moving forward. Not just AI, but adding the language in there to help us support the students moving forward.
So
And I would say this-
policies backwards, so what I just said, flip.
Goes on.
Yeah. I got ahead of myself. Actually, I was right where I was supposed to be, just didn't know it. So thank you.
And again, any questions or comments or points of clarity needed, don't hesitate to email me or get hold of me. Good. Good with that? Okay. Again, thank you for the presentation and pretty really targeted information to help guide the policy making of the board. We really appreciate that. All right, moving on to advanced planning. Item A, request for discussion, items to consider for,
Should I say November? November.
I might add that Albert Chavez had a really good idea last month that you had talked to me about the fire department. And they have a new fire department in Moriarty, a brand new building. I don't know if it's complete yet or not.
No, they're there.
But I don't want to take, okay, well, it's Albert's idea, so, but I'll say it. But he had some ideas that maybe it would really be kind of cool for some of the students to go visit it or see it, or have the fire department come over into some of the classrooms and talk about programs and, right?
The future goes of our kids,
Yeah.
fire department kids.
Maybe
fire
even being
department's
part of the
good.
fire department someday, but, yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Our
thought
students
it
are of
might be-
age to be able to volunteer and to get trained, right?
So it might be kind of cool to maybe have somebody reach out to Mayor Hart and ask if he would be willing to put something together. Or maybe that way it takes it off our table.
They said the same thing, so,
Yeah? Okay.
but he's stepping down now, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll move on it. We'll move on it. And I'll
And
talk
I'm
to
sure
Chief.
whoever comes in
I'll talk to Chief Hart as
and
well.
does that.
Right.
And also with the police department, a lot of our graduates are going to want to get into some of this.
Law enforcement.
True.
Very good.
Kind of on that same note, I did see on social media today that Moriarty Police Department and the Moriarty Fire Department were participating in Dig Pink with patches. Patches in pink, so I thought that was pretty,
Oh, that's cool.
pretty neat.
I
Yeah.
saw Chief Urbina with one of those patches on Friday and requested, hey, do you have any extra? I'd like to put one in my office. I mean, that was really nice.
Yeah, I thought that was a neat gesture.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. They they
You know-
do a good job of supporting breast cancer awareness in October and the Dig Pink initiatives, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Chavez, I cut you off.
I was gonna say, all we have to do is just reach out to a bunch of us, more than willing to help. That's what we're here for, is to try to get the kids better for the future, trying to better them all. Like I tell everybody, I don't have one student in school like a grandkid or a cousin or a nephew that's really my kid. I tell them I've had 2,200 plus kids in school.
That's for sure.
For sure.
And none of them any better than the others. They're all the same to me.
And we do have, the school district has a great relationship with Chief Jimenez and Edgewood as well.
Right.
And he's a huge advocate for the district and our students.
And we can reach out to both, we can reach out to both Santa Fe County Fire Department plus MORE in Torrance. Just an idea. From there, you gotta take it.
I got it written down and we'll take off with it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Any discussion for next month? So under, go ahead.
We'll go vote.
Voting November 7th, if not, if you haven't done early voting already, right? Early voting opened up on October 10th. And so two items that we listed on the agenda for your planning. The Moriarty High School Academic Awards Night, is October 25th. That's always a wonderful event to attend. And then the New Mexico School Board Association Annual Conference, November 30th through December 2nd. All right. Anything else for advanced planning? Anyone? All right, then, President Armijo, I recommend that our meeting tonight be adjourned.
All right, so we have a question. We have a question.
You
We have a recommendation. I have a question. We have a recommendation from Superintendent Viviano for adjournment. Any questions, protests?
There are none.
There are none.
I motion we adjourn.
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, I'll give it to Ms. Hudson.
You
Second.
can have it.
All members in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for making my day better.
Yay.
Something good.